Performance Podcast.
Episode 135, Pillar 5, in our ongoing 10 total episode run of the 10 Pillars of Mental Performance Mastery, largely the mental performance system created by the great Ichabod Brian Cain, who carries the torch forward for the great Harvey Dorfman and Ken Revisa. Process over outcome on Pillar 5 today. Welcome back to the Mindbender Mental Performance Podcast, the only podcast that former Dominican Winter League MVP says makes players fuerte en la cabeza. El lugar es aquí, el momento es ahora. Wherever you are, the place is here, and the time is now. Taking it from the clouds to the dirt, one episode at a time. You guys already know it's about showing up, being present, and knocking down the mental and oftentimes emotional barriers that get in the way of consistent and confident performance outcomes. Let's start today with the big picture. Process over outcome. Here's the deal. Everybody loves the big win, the chip, the trophy. But if you're only focused on those outcomes, you're going to flame out faster than T.O. Charlie throwing nothing but no-hook combos with no control. The real power? That's in learning to love the grind. The monotonous pushing the rock up the hill Groundhog Day, that is baseball. The behind-the-scenes stuff that nobody sees, but that builds championship players and cultures and teams. The process is where you gain control. Results? Totally unpredictable. But the process, that's all you. And when you commit to the process, you put yourself in the driver's seat. That's what we're talking about today. Becoming the kind of player who owns the process, not obedient to it. I do it because, yes, sir. What are you saying yes, sir, to? Right? That's what differentiates us from the birds and the dogs and the cats and the robots, is that we have choice as human beings. So own the process. Don't be obedient to it. And let the results take care of themselves. And in order to do that, we've first got to understand what we can and can't control. Here's what most players and coaches get twisted. They waste energy worrying about the things they can't control. The umpires, the weather, the playing surface, the lineup, playing time, perfect game rankings, ERA, batting average, wins, outcomes, and on and on and on. What the coach is saying, what the other team is saying, what the parents are saying, that's a losing battle. You can't control any of that. But you can control your ape. And that's where the magic happens. When you stop chasing the uncontrollable, you free up your mental energy to focus on what actually matters. Remember, focus determines your future. So what is your ape? It's your attitude, your appearance, your preparation, because the separation's in the preparation, your performance, not the results of how you perform, but how you perform, and your energy and effort. Let's next discuss one of the most critical things that we do with all our athletes, the daily success checklist that we use through the Habit Share application. This is where we get practical. You've got to track your habits. Measurement is motivation. Use a tool like the Habit Share app to create your daily success checklist. It's not just a to-do list. It's a game plan for improvement, an intentional game plan for improvement. The best, their reality is a direct result of their intention and their attention. You treasure what you measure. And if you're not measuring your progress, you're just guessing at your growth. I feel like I usually do sometimes. Every time you check off a habit, whether it's your shadow bullpen, your mental imagery, recovery routine, your 1% better plan, your AM or PM journal, your pregame routine, your in-game routine, your post-game routine, you're stacking small wins. And let me tell you, small wins add up. Your future is the sum of all your todays. If you want a telescope goal and you want to look out into the future and play at a Division I school or play in the Grande Ligas, then you have to reverse engineer it to the microscope goal and ask yourself, what do I need to do within the next 24 hours to accomplish that goal? That builds momentum. That builds confidence. And it works if you fucking work it. Speaking of working it, you got to work the cut. How do you work the cut? So a lot of people have asked me about working the cut. So sometimes you're struggling to land that knockout punch. You're sometimes struggling to finish the fight that you're in. Well, if that's the case, it's probably because you're trying to land the knockout punch and you're trying to finish the fight before trying to work the cut and find a different way. Death by 1,000 cuts, right? Sometimes it's not a bullet to the head, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. And the greatest teams, the greatest fighters, the greatest cultures, they understand the value of working the cut. You see, they understand the process. They understand the importance of simply landing a jab on their opponent's face, getting a cut, and then when that blood from that cut starts to run in the opponent's eye and they get that adrenaline, they know they've got to survive the assault. Because in great competition, there's always going to be the assault. But you've got to survive the assault and keep working the cut. Right? So let's talk about the importance of surviving all the adversity, surviving the assault, and just working the cut until you get to the finish. How do you work the cut? Well, let's talk about that. Oftentimes everybody's, a lot of UFC. Everybody watches UFC. Maybe you watch that Paul Tyson fight. Man, tough to see Iron Mike, but I'm glad he got caked up. We can't be mad at the fact that Iron Mike's putting a little extra Alabama bullfrogs in his pocket, a little extra jingle jangle. Who knows? He'll probably end up in some ceremonial hut in the Amazon jungle. So we've got to think about how you work the cut. It's simply about getting a small punch in and then continuing to work that area and work that area and work that area and stick to the process until your opponent gets a cut on their face, gets the blood in their eye, and then here comes the assault. When the assault comes, you got to survive the assault and get back to working the cut. You see, it's really about the process. And working the cut for you might be reading a page a day out of the mental, the mental keys, the mental ABCs to baseball. Maybe you're reading Heads Up Baseball. Maybe you're reading the mental ABCs of pitching, the mental ABCs of hitting. Maybe it's a documentary or a book that you're consuming, right? Might be working the cut for you, might be getting an extra 5 minutes of exercise or starting your day with 5 minutes of sweat before screens. Working the cut might be getting an extra 10 minutes of work in after practice, because we know if you work just like everyone else, you'll probably get similar results and be average. And that's a terrible place to be. So we must work the cut. That's a huge aspect of what we're doing. So focus on the next swing, then the next. Same with the goals, whether it's adding a couple velo on the fastball, whether it's cutting down strikeouts, you got to work the cut. Day by day, what are you doing to work the cut? You'll get there. And then one day, bam, right? You get that knockout. That's how success works. No shortcuts, just hard work, consistent work. Let's talk a little bit about the compound effect. That's a great book. I'm sure everybody's heard of the compound effect. Consistency is a superpower. It's about doing a little, a lot, not a lot, a little. It's those small daily actions that build up over time. You see, most often it's like, wow, this stuff's pretty easy to do, but it's not simple. And what is something easy to do? And we've talked about this before. Defining something easy to do is something that you can do. But the real trick is, if it's easy to do, it's also easy not to do. And that's where the neglect comes in. And neglect is a killer because it starts out as an infection and ends up as a disease. Think of that. You don't spend 8 hours in the cage one day and then skip the rest of the week. You put in an hour every day, consistently. And that's what moves the needle. Big success is often hidden in those tiny, boring, daily choices, the easy ones to do that you don't neglect. It's kind of like rushing nesting dolls. You don't see it all at once, but every layer is progress to the actual thing. So what is the skill of process over outcome? It's simple. It's finding satisfaction in the effort, not just the result. It's doing the daily grind and doing it with love and fun and enjoyment. Oftentimes I go, why do you play baseball? Oh man, I love it. It's fun. I enjoy it. Cool. While you're playing it, while you're preparing for it day in and day out, make sure you're having fun and enjoying the process of that. Why else? I love it. Well, if you love it, make sure while you're doing it with love, right? So when we can do that, it's finding the satisfaction in the effort, not just the results. It's focusing on what's in your control and letting go of what's not. When you master that, every day becomes an opportunity to improve. You're not just chained to the scoreboard to feel successful. You're chained to a standard. Compete to a standard, not a scoreboard. Process over outcome is a mental shift that puts you in the driver's seat. And that's where you want to be. Not waiting for results to validate you, but owning your damn journey every single day. Owning the journey every single day. And speaking about being in the driver's seat, what about the GPS unit, right? Those headlights, when we're on a cross-country road trip, leaving at midnight, we need those headlights to see. We can't see the entire journey right in front of us, but we sure as shit can see the next 200 feet. Take the next best turn. And when you're driving off a cliff, make sure you get off on the exit. What's the takeaway from all this? Stop chasing outcomes and start owning the process. You executed that day, you didn't execute that day, stick to the process. Prepare, perform, reflect. Control what you can, track your progress, and keep showing up no matter how tough it gets, because tough times don't last. Tough people do. How about that little mini breakdown, episode 135 of Pillar 5 of the 10 Pillars of Mental Performance Mastery System created by the great Ichabod Kane. For my Latin players today, más línea, más vida. Hasta la próxima. Recuerda, si quieres ser un jugador disciplinado, comprometido y preparado en el futuro, empiezas esa mierda hoy. Se necesita lo que se necesita y lo mejor está por venir. Until next time, remember, if you want to be a disciplined, committed, and prepared ball player in the future, start it today. It takes what it takes, and the best is yet to come. We'll see you guys on the other side. Oh, what a day. What a day. Keep after it, everybody.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for